So here we are, week 8.
That's just week 9.
9?
That says week 9 on
No, it's actually 8. I haven't changed the week on the slides, I just moved them around a bit. Well, the main part of today is about project management, risk management, and benefits and uncertainty management. So kind of linking into what we did last week, for those who were here. I want to go back a little bit to last week, and perhaps have a little discussion on the topics we looked at last week about risk, about Bruce Schneier's views, about why we are absolutely useless as humans by and large at identifying risk and working with this idea of risk. A quick recap of where the BSc IT fits into the world of computing, particularly in contrast to the world of computer science and programming and networks at the deeper levels. And then most of the time is going to be spent on the idea of what are the key issues of project management and bringing in some of those ideas from last week about uncertainty management as opposed to risk management, and thinking a little bit about something called benefits management. So, how many people actually looked at all of those Bruce Schneier articles and had a bit of a think about why we fail to do risk assessment effectively and why we fail to address risk management effectively? Any work done on that, guys? Or do we just move quickly on and carry on with the rest of the stuff?
Started looking at it, but I haven't finished reading it yet.
Okay, right. So
But it just like, always goes back to the thing. I always feel that. Well, no, sorry. What I was seeming to get from it is that these industries are just like being sold some. You know how you go to a car showroom and they sell you whatever car they can. It seems like they're doing the same with IT. They're not actually looking how it's going to help their company. That's what I was getting to.
that's actually a rather deep insight, that IT appears to be yet another of those things which sold as a package. Just don't take it and it'll answer your problem. It's the magic silver bullet. And it's kind of a bit like when I was at Rolls-Royce in the 80s and early 90s. Every couple of years, a new thing, maybe customer first, or risk management, or benefits management, or uncertainty management, or a new tool pops out of the business schools every couple of years. And they just say, if you do this like this, it will solve all of your problems. And of course, magic silver bullets don't exist. And so that insight is really great, because what actually should be happening is to evaluate each of these new tools or new toolkits to identify what's really valuable. In other words, to apply critical analysis to the toolkit and my context. And you'll see on the last couple of slides of today's seminar material is very much critically evaluating project management methodologies. Because, you know, there's so many SSADM or Prince2 or PMBOK or they're all sold as a complete toolkit. You do this or you don't do it. Or if you go for the governance frameworks, COBIT says you do this. Tick, 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 all however many sections there are and subsections and tick boxes and numbers you fill in here and there. You can't scale that, whereas ISO 27002 as a governance framework is scalable. You choose by critical analysis in the context of your individual project and in the context of your individual company or organization, which are the bits which are vital for me or us to do to be successful. And so ISO does not say we are a mechanism for the total solution, that you have to do it exactly this way. It's set up very carefully and very specifically based on risk assessment which we think we may have a problem with, what are the critical governance issues that need to be solved for this project, which is exactly like your assignment. Part 2 of the assignment is what are the critical issues in terms of governance that need to be addressed.
There's 2 parts to our assignment.
There's 3.
I thought it was one long.
Yes, but it's identified as 3 sections.
Oh, you scared me. I thought it was 2 assignments.
No, so, oh, right, no, misuse, difference in words, yeah. No, there's 3 sections within the assignment, and section 2 is all about identifying the critical issues. The 2 or 3 fundamental, vital issues, using maybe 27,002 or something. I don't really mind, as long as you argue the case for that particular framework, or the bits from this and this and this framework. So yeah, they sell themselves as complete toolkits which you have to apply or not, as the case may be. And that actually is a serious issue. And I want you to get out of that approach. Here is PMBOK, let's use it. Or here is COBIT, let's use it. Here is Prince2, let's use it. Or here's SSADM, let's use it. There are bits which are valuable, and there are bits which are just too much effort. Completely unnecessary. So that's probably the most important insight you can get out of reading those articles by Schneier and others is magic silver bullets don't exist. Complete toolkits do not work. Okay, well done. That's good. Let's move on. If you think about the BSCIT, particularly as it now has things like analytics being built into it, and you did some SAS work last year, and you can do a bit of SAS work if you're doing some of the projects this year, it might be helpful. You can also, if you want to do the base SAS certification, based on the material we've given you, and we will support you in that if you want to do it. But BSCIT is really about the top 2, perhaps top 3 levels of the Zachman framework. The planner, the owner, and possibly the high-level designer. It is certainly not, in broad terms, about coding and building systems. It's about thinking about what are the benefits, what are the requirements, what are the needs of these services, these systems which we're trying to bring in. And in terms of the project, the assignment, it's very much to do with understanding the impact of location services at the very highest levels. Communication sort of issue as well. If you go back to that those Schneier articles, one of the problems, for example, in the risk assessment of, say, where there are negative consequences like malware, like security problems, senior execs, senior management don't like to be told here is a problem. They like to have solutions. They like the positive. They do not like the situation where you're saying, well, unless you spend $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million or £5 million or dollars, then that will buy a nice solution. But if you don't, there's a 5 or 10 or 15% risk that you're going to have a big expensive problem. Because in that situation, humans naturally will play the risk. If there's a positive benefit, then it is extremely likely that they will pay to get the benefit at a percentage level rather than not paying and perhaps maybe not getting the benefit, but maybe getting it anyway. It's one of those articles by Schneier puts that case very, very clearly. That although the game, he puts it in terms of 2 situations where the actual mathematical benefit or cost is identical, either taking the risk or not taking the risk, or for the adverse consequences, or for taking a risk or not taking a risk or benefit. And people behave very, very differently according to how the problem is framed. And in terms of communicating up at this level, the planner owner level, you need to put it into the context so that they are prepared to make those expenditures. Otherwise they probably won't. They'll play the odds. And once in 5 years they may get a major network failure, once in 5 years they may get a major malware problem or something.
Just do it.
If you're very, very quiet. So it has consequences in terms associating this with Schneier about how we frame our language to communicate upwards, because they also do not like techie. And there was a lovely advert a few years ago on TV from Microsoft about Active Directory. I don't know if you remember the advert, but it was this little geeky guy about that high and really slim and, you know, right proper geek. And he just successfully implemented Active Directory across the whole of the organization. And he was trying to communicate to this senior manager who was about that tall and that big and, you know, lots of presence. And he was whittering on about the number of accounts that had been moved into Active Directory, the number of servers that they'd implemented Active Directory across, and the senior manager was getting more and more and more irritated. You could see he was just about to bop the guy, dump like that, and get him out my way. I mean, when suddenly the little geeky guy, oh, and by the way, we saved ourselves £1 million a year as a result of doing this. And you could see, now you're talking my language. Now you're talking benefits. Now you're talking money. That's what I'm interested in. And it kind of relates back to when I was at Rolls-Royce. And Rolls-Royce would go into, with partnering with Airbus or McDonnell Douglas or Boeing, to say, right, here is an aeroplane and a set of engines which is going to meet your needs. And it was quite amusing in some respects, just to think, so here the engineers, the techies, planning their presentations about the latest super whizzo single crystal turbine blades or the fantastic new fan blade technology or all the other brilliant bits of technology that go into jet engines, whether it's from Rolls-Royce or Pratt & Whitney or General Electric. They'd all have the same sort of highly technical, these are the benefits of our machine. And then when they got to the airlines were kind of, yeah, are we interested in single crystal or wide gauge fan blade technology or? But what they were really interested in is moving people around the world as cheaply and as reliably as possible. And the problem for the airlines is this technology comes with an aluminium or carbon fiber tube with things that stick out and under which hang a couple of 2 or 4 staggeringly expensive lumps of metal called engines. But really, they want to know what is this package from Airbus and Rolls-Royce or Boeing and Airbus and Rolls-Royce or General Electric or Pratt & Whitney that makes it a good idea for me to invest in these new things called new aeroplanes. And what they're wanting to know is about reliability and the lowest possible cost of running that package and shifting people around the world. Whether it's got whizzo technology or incredibly traditional technology is almost of no consequence. As long as it delivers that fuel efficiency, well, how you, the engine manufacturer and the airframe manufacturer, manage to do that, it's not really much interest to them. So again, it's getting the non-technical message, the business benefits message.
Why are they never interested in how the cogs work?
Because they are interested in the business, which is moving people around the world as reliably and as cheaply as is possible. Now, it may well be that you need the best cogs or the most incredible design to do that. But it's the consequence, reliability, low cost of ownership, low cost of flying, low cost of fuel. That's what they're really interested in. Yeah, they'll be pushing for the best possible fuel burn, and so on. And that will probably drive the techie providers to incredible levels of new and ultra-high technology. But they don't want to know about that, really. In the same way, when you're building brand new analytics tools and systems for big data or for Internet of Things, the senior managers don't want to know about how you're doing it, about, oh, that SAS or Cognos or SPSS or is the best package available at a technical level. They want to know about it at, does it deliver really great answers to really interesting questions that help me to develop the sustainable strategic advantage of my company in relation to my competitors. That's what they want to know. And so the Schneier papers are talking about that curious way that humans respond to communication in terms of risks and percentages and probabilities. It talks about, or enlightens, as you mentioned there, Kieran, about the need to choose your language, whether it's about security, about probabilities, about risk management, risk assessment, or whatever. Choose it in terms that closely relate to the senior managers, these people's really important concerns on a day-to-day or week-by-week basis. You've seen this picture before now, haven't you? Have a look at it. If you haven't seen it, you should have seen ITSM last year. Have a look at it, Kieran. And there's a really good book about it in the library that's in last week's bibliography for the seminar slides.
I've seen the framework, I've never seen that picture.
Ah, okay, right, well, yeah. And so what we are trying to develop is the design, not actually building it. We're trying to look at the business benefits, the business objectives, the business purpose, the requirements. We're not, and with aesthetics and interfaces, that's kind of, it goes back to IT product design last year, in the second year. It's all about communication and the business benefits. Various sort of analyst type roles, and as we move into the world of big data and so on, big data and analytics, and data science, data management is becoming much, much more important, where we are very much thinking about translating the business language into the world of technology so that somebody else can do it for us to supply the needs of the business. So that's really what comes out of, in a sense, extending Schneier's ideas a little bit. We now want to move on for the rest of today to think about project and program management, which is all about sorting out how we plan those things around us that we need to get done, and then making sure they do get done to time, the right time scale and so on. And as it says here, we're not trying to maximize one of the 6 items. We're trying to build an optimization between all of those. The classical project management is shown in terms of quality, costs and resources as a triangle. And always in those triangles you've got the project is somewhere inside the triangle, not achieving 100% on any of those axes. Because we can't do that. Not unless we've got infinite time and infinite resource will we be able to do a good project on time to budget with the right resources. And the bosses and the business cannot generally support that sort of situation. So we're optimizing. Trade-offs between the benefits, the quality, resources, the costs, the time, and the risk. So That's what we're trying to do. So what the task is going to be today, first of all, is for you to find a range of definitions by researching what is program management, what is project management. I want you to use academic sources and also the professional web resources such as the Institute of Program Managers or Project Managers and so on. Build those sources into your working bibliography. And then I want you to then start critically evaluating the difference between project management and program management. And that comes back to the definitions of what is a project, what is a program. And also, think about that last one. What are the key tasks in the traditional IT-related project or program? And then the next stage is to look at or research for at least 5 different approaches to project management. There's dozens out there, lots of different methodologies. Things like Prince2, SADM, PMBOK, and. There's loads and loads and loads of them. But I suggest you restrict yourself to about the top 5 that you think are interesting. So use Wikipedia because there's some rather good references in Wikipedia that lead you to a whole set of names for different project management approaches. Then, from there, then you go out using those terms and names into professional and academic sources, whether it's ACM Digital, EBSCO, Emerald, or just Google. Find out 5 good different approaches to project management, add your sources to the bibliography, and critically evaluate what are the fundamental differences between each of those 5 approaches you've come up with. Research to find out the circumstances in which each approach works and why, and what sort of circumstances don't they work and why. Because that then leads you on to, okay, here is my new context, my new project. Which of those project management approaches might work and why? Which ones won't work, probably, and why not? And you might even think about synthesizing the best sections of that project management approach and that project management approach in this particular context, which may well work because, and I want to see the because as well, that's part of justification. This answers the magic silver bullet problem. Because you're actively going to choose an approach that will work, and you can explain why it's going to work, because you've got the steps, because in this context. And then the final section is going to be to look at 3 different topic areas of different approaches to project management. You've got the classic one at the top, risk management. That is the way that most project management is done these days. You've got ISO 27000, I think 5, which is the risk management section, talks about risk management. It's the old 7799 part 3. But there are different approaches. There's a couple of textbooks in the library on benefits management and uncertainty management, and there are quite a lot of academic articles about these 2 newer approaches to ensuring you get benefits for an organization. Leading to the critical evaluation, so you've got the research, and then you've got the critical evaluation to compare risk, benefit, and uncertainty management. What are the strengths of each approach or the benefits? And what are the different problems about risk management or about benefits management or uncertainty management compared with the other 2 approaches? The weaknesses. And then if you're doing a SWOT analysis, you might want to think about opportunities or threats that come from each of these approaches. And the 2 books which are in the library, as I remember, Failures of Risk Management, An Approach to Fixing It, and another one here about opportunity management, uncertainty management. So that's the main task for the first hour, and the second half is as follows. As a kind of application of these new ideas, the research you're doing, which is to critically evaluate the issues relating to the most effective approaches to project management in the context, because that's what you're going to be putting into section 2 or 3 of the assignment, or part of it. So to do that, going back to the risk, benefit and uncertainty management approaches, which bit do you like and why, and how will that apply to the idea of your sustainable governance strategy for location services, which is the assignment, in sort of simplified terms. Apply it. And that's really what these sessions are all about now, the last few weeks of this term, is to look at these new ideas and then see how they work in terms of your assignment, to apply them. And it would be kind of nice if we do have a little opportunity for discussion, an informed discussion, because you've done work during the next week, until next Monday, that help us to sort of have an interesting discussion about that topic of what are the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats of risk, benefit and uncertainty management for projects. Okay? So that's the whole time between now and 4 o'clock. But there are a couple of other things I'd like to sort of go through with you, because there are some sort of sideways looks at the way the world works. The first is this one from Sir Josiah Stamp, and they wrote this sometime around the end of the 1890s and the early 1900s. He was the guy who was governor, one of the very early governors of the Bank of England. He's also the guy who actually set up the British Rail Tech Centre here in Derby. And he made this comment about government statistics, which kind of relates to the way, what it has to do with communication and human behaviour. He says, the government is extremely fond of amassing great quantities of statistics, in today's terms, big data. These are raised to the nth degree, the cube roots extracted, and the results are arranged in elaborate and impressive displays of visualizations and infographics. What must be kept ever in mind, however, is that in every case the figures are first put down by a village watchman, and he puts down anything he damn well pleases, which is veracity in, of data. And with the big data, we don't know often the truthfulness of the data that's being collected. It also applies to project status reports. You have a big ERP implementation project, and there's probably many thousands of activities, start dates and finish dates, and possibly with 25, 50% and 75% completion. And it is extremely likely, and I'm sure some of you have seen this in the real world, you get to close to the implementation date of the project, where you would expect almost all of the activities to have 100% completion status. And yet, 2 weeks before implementation of a £20 million project, and you will find that 80% of all of the activities, even ones which were supposed to have been completed 6 months ago, they're all at 75% status. Do I see grins of amusement and recognition? Yeah. And so the project goes out and says, well, hang on, we're going to go live, and all these activities which are supposed to be completed at 6 months ago, 12 months ago, are still 75%. What's happening? Well, we haven't quite done all of the work, which is why it's still at 75%. And the message then goes out, well, are they going to hold up the project? If we haven't completed them, the completeness that the spec originally had, is that going to be a problem? And suddenly, all of those 80% of the tasks suddenly become 100%. And we've not done it. Sorry. And we've not done any work. We've not done anything. We just decided, oh well, blow it. We might as well say 100%, just so that we can release the project. Kind of like that. Not quite the village watchman, but it's sort of, oh well, we didn't do everything we wanted, but it's not going to hurt the project, so we can kind of fudge the numbers. A very cynical approach, perhaps, from me, but it happens in so many projects. It raises an interesting question about project management itself. Do we really need to go to that level of detail? What's going on about those definitions of tasks which clearly are over-specified? Or are they? Or is it something we just catch up with a bit later on? So that's one thing about numbers and statistics and data. And it's becoming more and more relevant because less and less of the data we're using can be guaranteed to be accurate. So in the world of big data analytics, this is extraordinarily relevant because we put down whatever we darn well please when we log into websites. We don't give our full details. We don't give the true data most of the time because we don't want them out there tracking us. But the question then comes back from the seniors, well, does it affect the value of the analysis? Will it change what I need to do or what I want to do in terms of my business development? Will I still get value out of the data? And then one final thing about projects. Oh, there's a couple of little items which is kind of interesting. Again, very, very cynical in some respects. Frank Lloyd Wright said, an expert is a person who stopped thinking because he knows. I want you to be experts because you think. Because you continue to learn. Not a person who has stopped thinking. That's why I teach questions, not answers. If I teach you questions, you stop learning because you know the answer. But if you know the questions, they never change or very rarely change. And then you can find the right answer or a good answer in every situation because you know how to go and find the supporting information that you can then make a good decision on. Or as Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge because knowledge is limited. I know it. But imagination is infinite. I can find the questions, I can find the answers, I can find the information. And then, one last entertaining thing. See the mo while I transfer it across to here? Read through this magical little view of a project, the snafu principle. And what it's doing is going from the people who are the program or the project team, defining the task, defining the resources, negotiating if possible to get the right resource and the right task definition. But, as is mostly the case, the project plan isn't very good. And so the project leader, the leader of the team, speaks to the project leader, the project manager, and points out that it's really not very good, that there are serious problems. As the project leader, program leader, project manager, talks to the next level up, and he's changing the wording gently because they don't like the rudish terms that are used at the lower levels. And so it suddenly becomes sort of manure and so on. It's a vessel of fertilizer, and it's incredibly strong. One may abide by its strength. And what you're seeing is they're changing 2 words each time. And by the end of it, I guess you've seen this as well, probably. Now, by the time it's got to the top of the organisation, this new software project is going to be fantastic for the company. Hang on. The project team will think it's a complete catastrophe and never happen. The senior guy in the company, the president of the company, thinks it's the most fantastic thing now. He's being briefed. And then, as almost always happens, all of the people in the chain, right down to the bottom level, just about the suits, the management, because this has been a catastrophe, a big project disaster, as often happens, 70% of the time they're project disasters, the implementers are demoted or fired. And that description there is really interesting because the difference between what senior people think of a project and the guys doing the project is often far, far apart like that. I saw it in one project I was involved in where I actually was able to find the details because I was supervising one of the final year students the first year that I came here from where I worked before. And this girl had done a really interesting project inside that company and had got answers to a set of questions, a questionnaire from about 150 people across the company about the implementation of an ERP system. And it was amazing to see just how different the perceptions were of those at the bottom of the organisation who were doing all of the implementation of this SAP system compared to the sort of senior people in the organisation, both in the project and in the company, who were the customers of it, the owners, you might say, of the system. The owners saw it as the most fantastic success. The people who had implemented it and were actually trying to operate it thought of it as a complete disaster. And you will see this in every company with almost every project that's ever implemented, particularly associated with IT. And it's kind of interesting to try and work out, A, what's going on, why there is this changing perception, because ultimately, as a project or program manager, you need to understand very clearly how that changing the process works, so you can actually manage that, so that these senior people get a good, an accurate and truthful message, not this really bizarre message. Hmm? Yeah, you see it in all sorts of places.
You see the new scanner that they've got?
No.
Our Tesco, they've given everyone these scanners. So basically, you walk around, you scan your shopping, and you put it in your bag, and at the end,
Oh yeah.
you just pay for it. All the staff think it's absolute shite, and it goes wrong a lot, and then you have to re-scan everyone's shopping. All the bosses say it's the most wonderful thing. Our Tesco is more advanced than everyone else's. Everyone's going to love this
Well,
new system.
except that, though that technology was used by, which one was it? Not Marks and Spencer's. Sainsbury's used it in places, but there was also another one, the John Lewis's associated food shop. What's that? They had them about 12, 14 years ago. Not that I've seen any of those companies, those shops using it for the last 5, 10 years, but why would you go and scan your stuff when you can get it scanned by someone on the till who goes zoom, 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 zoom.
Get rid of it, because they see it as they get rid of not
Well,
giving staff to run.
Yeah, it's like those self-scan stuff, you know, the self-scan tills. Why would I bother?
It's a quicker.
No,
But they're not.
they're not actually.
They
And if
are.
you've got any booze, it takes forever. And I mean, there's a lovely example, well, because they've got to get the right person. come and press the button.
But if you just got normal shopping, it's quickly going to
It
the till and be
can be if you've only got a small basket full. You can't turn up with a full trolley.
Oh
No, quite exactly. So yeah, those sort of those self scanners, they're okay if you've got 2 or 3 items. But then they shout at you and chatter to you all the time, and irritate, don't they?
Well, they're getting rid of more normal tools and putting more of them in shops.
Yeah, but why is it you see them unused half the time and the proper tills with people all the time?
Because management think it's working.
The different perceptions, yes, exactly, precisely. As you say, they don't work very well sometimes. They get confused. I mean, the way to really foul it up, in Sainsbury's or in Tesco's, I think, is to say you haven't got a bag, and you've only got 1 item or 2 items, and you don't want to put it down there, but it gets confused if you don't put it down on that bit there, and if you don't put it in a bag that's suspended, it's probably going to blow a fuse.
Not very secure. You can put things through as fruit.
Yeah. So lack security and so on. So
But someone somewhere's probably saying it's saving you money on employing more people. Do you think
that's what they like to think, and it's also part of these new wave your card at the thingy rather than press it in because it's wireless or whatever.
Do you know what? Here's the placebo effect that they're saving money. Right? Their machines, probably because they're all technical, probably cost about $3-4 grand each. Yeah.
And some.
Right now they're going to say, well, it will work for 5 years, but in 5 years they're going to want to upgrade, so they're going to buy another one. Now that would have been someone's wage for a part-time worker for 2 years, but they seem to be.
I mean, you're raising a very interesting question about the pervasive use of technology, IT-related technology these days, is that companies seem very, very happy to switch revenue spend on salaries and wages for very, very expensive technology. And it's kind of interesting because an awful lot of the technology needs replacing every 2 or 3 years. How well the business cases are justified, I'm not entirely sure, because I know how often, when I was where I was, it was very easy, once you knew the way of justifying projects, you could add all sorts of interesting things, and I know that for ERP systems around the world, all sorts of interesting costs are built into the benefits because we're not going to do that, or whatever. And the reality is, actually in different ways, you are going to do something like that in one form or another. And business cases are manipulated all of the time. This is the answer I want. You project manager, you program manager, build the business case that gives this answer. Don't worry how much it relates. I mean, no one will say, I don't care whether it relates to the real world or not. I want a business answer, a business case that justifies this project. This goes back, as I may have said before, to what the Chief Legal Counsel for the World Bank, Ibrahim Shihata, wrote in one of his many reports about his 10 years as the Chief Legal Counsel. He published them in 3 tomes about that thick. And in one of the articles, I think it's the 2nd volume, he points out that as the most senior legal expert in the World Bank, he was never asked by his VP colleagues, here is an idea we would like to explore, a policy we would like to develop, cast your eye over it and give us your legal opinion on its viability or whatever, or legality. Which is how you should use experts. Use your professional expertise to help us develop the right sort of thing. But he says he was never asked that. He was only ever given, here is a policy decision we're making. Tell us how to make it legal in relation to the World Bank Charter and so on. in other words, this is a decision we've already made, bless it for us. And you'll find in project development that the management accountant is there not to find the truth, but it's to use your professional expertise to develop a business case which justifies this approach that we want to do.
Find the rabbit hole.
Pardon?
Find the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and it's endemic for some in the way that British and Anglo-Saxon, I think, businesses work. You guys, you're the IT expert, you're the program management expert, the project management expert, the accountant, or whatever. This is the answer. Develop the plan that comes to that answer. And that is an incredibly dangerous and incredibly risky position. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many of our IT-related projects fail. Those 70%, the Standish Group, or 65%, the Standish Group reports show as challenged or failed is partly because the experts are not using their expertise to plan a viable plan, but they're given a plan that they have to actually achieve. So, with all of that background, all of those resources, which are all in Week 8's package, now often start doing your research as laid out in the seminar and workshop sections, and if you want a discussion, we can have a little discussion at appropriate points. Okay? Thank you very much, folks.